Short assignment one. So for each word, I'll be going through the subtopics, but I won't be announcing them every single time. I'll just kind of be going in order of like origin, how the word forms influence, mechanisms, the word I picked, and the meaning in modern days. So relationships. So relationships is from Old French and Middle English, which in turn originated from Latin relation. And Latin relation means a connection, which is why relationships in modern English kind of refers to how things are connected with each other. Relationships in modern English derive from relation, conveying the concept of connections. Word formation mechanism. So relationship is a compounding of relations plus ship, while relationships is a compounding of relation plus ship, and the suffix of s. So the word I picked was relational. Relational refers to something that pertains to, involves, or is characterized by relationships or kind of connection between things. It often describes situations that are designed to manage data on the relationships between data entities, and there's not really a historical past for it. Summarized. So the word summarize is derived from the verb summarize, yet the word summarize comes from the Middle English word summaries, which in turn is derived from the Latin word summarium. The original word form summarium back then referred to a summary or kind of a larger work. Now over time this concept has stayed the same and it still kind of means like a roundup of the whole subject or the main points, and same thing for summarized. And the word formation mechanism, so it's a mix of a derivation and inflection. So it's derived, so for the derivation, it's derived from the Latin word summarium, and the verb summarize is formed by adding the suffix ize to summary. And the inflection, the past tense from summarize is created by adding the inflection ending ed to the verb summarize. The example of a word with the same root, summarizer. So summarizer kind of refers to a tool or software person that condenses your summary of a summary of a longer piece. And the word summarize comes from the Latin word summa, which means the highest or the total in English. So summarize means to provide a condensed version of it. So, but there's not really a historical past for it, and it's not really a very popular word. Thankfully, so it's derived from the adjective thankful, which has its origins in the Middle English. Middle English thankful evolved from the Old English word pantsful, where pants means thought or gratitude. And the original forms of thankful are rooted in the concept of gratitude and appreciation. The historical connection to gratitude shapes in the modern meaning of thankful. So it's kind of the same thing from the start of it to how it is now. It means the same. Its derivation by adding the suffix fully to thank to transform it into an adverb to thankfully. The example is thanker. The term thanker is not really used. It's just to be understood as someone who thanks a lot, basically, but it's not used too much and it's not really historical significance. Broaden. So broaden can be traced all the way back to its English roots. In English, the adjective broad was written as brad and meant wide or kind of spacious. This term brad evolved over time into Middle English and broad, maintaining its meaning of width and or expanding. Uh, and the original word form of broaden have significantly influenced both its meaning and orthography in modern English. They're derived from the Old English adjective brad, signifying wide or spacious. So broaden retains the same thing. And it's a derivation from adding suffix en to the base word broad, which in turn turns into a verb, which turns into broaden. The word I picked is broadcast. Broadcast is basically like a transmission of audio, data, whatever it is, media, and it's usually used in a ton of different medium forms. The term broadcast originally had its roots in agriculture, referred to the wide scattering of seeds over a large area. Profession. Profession has a rich etymology with roots in Latin, Old French, and Middle English. It initially originated from Latin professio, derived from a verb profidere, meaning to acknowledge. In ancient Rome, professio referred to a solemn declaration of commitment, often do religious things, and as languages evolved, this kind of turned into more just talking about the occupation itself. So Latin roots professio originally referred to making a solemn declaration, as I said before, in a religious context, and it's still slightly evident now, but it's still more or less we're talking about the career nowadays. It's a derivation by adding the suffix ion to the verb profess to make it a noun to turn profession. The word I picked is professors. Professor is obviously someone who works in university, college, school. They usually have a higher expertise in a certain subject, and the professor has roots in Latin. Pursue. So the word pursue has its origins in Middle English and Old French, and in Middle English it was called pursuin, and it came from the Old French word poursuivre, which means to follow or to chase. The Old French root poursuivre conveys the idea of following or chasing after something, and it's very similar now. It's the same thing for pursue, you're chasing after something. It's a derivation in which the base word pursue and the prefix or the suffix e is added to make the word pursue. Example of English word is pursuance that I picked. It's a term that's used often in legal or formal context. It's the act of carrying or executing a plan. So it's not really a word used too much these days and doesn't really have too much of a historical root or significance. Uh, Widely. The word widely originates from Middle English and is formed by combining the word wide, which can be traced all the way back to Old English wid, signifying broad or spacious, with the suffix ly. The original form of wide in Old English signified a condition of being broad or having like a considerable width. The historical meaning is very similar nowadays. It means the same thing basically. Word formation mechanism is a derivation of the word wide, and we add the suffix ly to make the word widely. Example is widespread. It's commonly used to indicate that a particular phenomenon, condition, trend is widespread. So it's been observed widely across multiple regions, and its origin is Old English. Overlooked. So the origin of overlooked has Germanic roots and is rooted in Old English. In Old English, the verb "losien" denoted the action of seeking or watching. To form overlooked, the prefix over was added to look, resulting in a word that conveys not seeing something. Basically, the original word form of overlooked in Old English shapes its modern meaning and spelling. In Old English, look meant to see, and over added the idea of looking beyond something. So it's basically the same thing now. It's basically the exact same thing. So it's a type of compounding as we're combining the prefix over and the base word looked to make the word overlooked. An example of a word is unlooked. So unlooked is basically just unlooking at something. You basically stop looking at it. It's not a very common word, but it has the same root and doesn't really have much of a historical significance. Outdated. So the word outdated comes from the English origin and has no direct Latin or Greek roots. It's formed through the native English language process using prefixes existing English words. The original word form of dated significantly shapes both the meaning and orthography of the modern English word outdated. Originally, dated referred to the act of assigning a date to something when combining with the prefix out, which implies going beyond its form. It forms outdated. It's a type of compounding as we're combining the prefix out and the base word dated, in which together they form outdated. I chose outdated or undated. Undated means something does not really have a specific date at all, and it's used to describe documents that don't really have a date or anything on it. It does not really have a historical meaning. It's used here and there, but a lot of people just say not dated. Honesty. So the word honesty has origins in Middle English and Old French. In Middle English, it was spelled as honest, and it came from the Old French word honeste, which derived from the Latin word honestas, meaning honor or decency. The word honesty evolved from its Latin and Old French where it was associated with honor, decency, and moral integrity. This influence is retained in the words nowadays that we use for honesty. So it's basically the same thing. It's just being truthful. It's a form of derivation as we have the base word honest and we add the suffix y to form the word honesty. I picked the word dishonest. So dishonest has a historical origins that can be traced back to Middle English and Old French. Ultimately stems from the Latin word dishonestus, which means dishonorable or shameful. Over time, it evolved in English to represent the not being truthful. Affirm. So the word affirm has its origins in Latin. It comes from the Latin word affirmare, where ad means to, and firmare means to make firm or to strengthen. The Latin affirmare conveys the idea of making something firm or strong. The influence is evident in the modern meaning of affirm, where it signifies the action of stating something positively or confidently. So it's very similar to the past. And the word formation mechanism is it's a type of borrowing, and as it has an unchanged meaning, and the word has only been slightly switched from affirmare to affirm. The word I picked is confirm, and the word confirm has its origins in modern English and Old French, which traces back to the Latin word confirmare, which means to strengthen. Over time, it evolved to take on the meaning of the truth, so it's kind of the same. It has like a slight historical background to it. And these are my sources, and thank you for listening.